right, hello everyone. I know I've seen a few of you on our past history mysteries, and today we are going to do something a little different. Now, if you remember any of the history mysteries that we did, we were looking at some pretty old things that existed in a pretty old house. Today's going to be a little different. We are looking at something very old, but as Josie had mentioned, we are cracking the cursive code. So we have cursive as something that you may or may not have been exposed to. I think a lot of you may have, but can anyone use the reactions to do a thumbs up if you've actually done any cursive in the past? So if you have, go ahead and use the reactions thing to put a thumbs up on your screen. It's like I'm seeing a good amount of thumbs up. Awesome. So cursive, it's definitely important in history, and we're going to learn why here in a second. But let me put on my screen, and I'll go over what we're going to do a little bit today. But we're going to look at why cursive is important in history, and we are actually going to crack a cursive code by looking at someone's old cursive. So let me share it here. Now I see that some of you are using quill and ink. That's pretty cool. Now, oddly enough, I'm using my iPencil right over here. So you're going to see me writing on my iPad. Very different ways to write. As you can see, things have changed quite a bit. But I'm going to present this here. So you should all be able to see my little slideshow here. It's loading, but we're going to crack the cursive code. Now, when we look at cursive, we do know that it's all over in history. In fact, it's pretty rare to find anyone in the 1800s or the 19th century to be writing in anything that isn't cursive. So it's important that we at least know what it is, even if we don't use it in our day-to-day lives. But a lot of you, and some of you may have not seen this, but this is the basic cursive alphabet. Now, we're not going to practice our penmanship today, but we're going to look at this, and this is almost like our code. This is what our code's going to be. And if you've never seen this before, this might look really crazy. But if you've been exposed to it, you are actually going to recognize a lot of the way things are here. Now, just to point out some of the things, now some of these letters are really weird looking compared to what we do today. Now, if you haven't seen it, the little R has always been a little weird one to me. But that one is definitely going to be the case. The uppercase G is definitely one that we don't see people write quite a lot. So we see that there's some differences in this. But I don't know about you, but I have met a lot of people that might not have such good handwriting, right? Now that might be in cursive or not cursive. So the thing about reading and deciphering in cursive is that sometimes they won't have good handwriting either. So today, we are going to look at some of the writings of Margaret Patten Gray Evans. She came here all the way from Illinois in the 1860s here in Denver. Now, she used to live in the house that I usually get to work in. And if you haven't seen it before, I know some of you have been there. This is at 1310 Bannock Street. It's the Byers Evans House Museum. And this is where she had lived towards the end of her life. And this is actually her rocking chair, and this piece of art right here was hers. But first things first, let's look at what we're looking at. Now, I'm going to try to make sure I can get my chat up here. Let me open it, my other thing. Now, can anyone tell me, we're going to look at this right here. Now, you can put in the chat, what do you think this book might be? I think you did a project on it on Wednesday. A diary. I'm seeing that a few of you would have said that. Now, this is a diary, and it's very old, and we'll find out how old it is pretty soon here. But you can kind of see it's so old that the little emblem in the middle had disappeared. It kind of says daily is what you can see right there. All right. Now, a diary. You can see that it's also called a daily journal. Now, looking at this, it might be easy, might not. What year do you think Margaret Gray Evans was writing in this diary? Can anyone see what the year is? Feel free to type it in the chat. 1863 from Siena and Clyde. So yeah, this is a really old diary. Now, if anyone can do any quick math, does anyone know how many years ago this was? Definitely over 100 years. Let's see if anyone can guess the right number in that chat. So 2020 today, 103 I see. Any other guesses? 137, So basically the math on this would be 2020 minus 1863. So someone got it here. 157 years ago. A couple of you got that. Sienna, then Adeline, Amelia, and Gertrude. Then Madison, oh, just put it in. But great guesses from all of you. Now we can all basically agree this is a long, long time ago, right? Now look at how old this book is. You have actually some old things like mildew, old water stains. So this is actually at the Denver Public Library in the Western and Genealogy Department. So they keep this safe. And I went there one day a few months ago to actually take a bunch of pictures of this so we can continue our research. But let's take a look at this now. This is what we are going to crack the code for. Now, I can tell you, right, when I was looking at this initially, it might be hard to read. Now, she writes things a little differently right here. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to look at this line by line. We're going to look at it very closely, and I want you to use your journals to go ahead and practice writing, deciphering what this might be. And I have a question here. How old was she when she wrote in it? Now, she was born in 1814. So we were going to do some math for that. Let's see here. So 1863 minus 1814, she was almost 50 years old when she was writing in this. And this is close to the age that she was moving to Denver. So quite a different time. So good question, Skip It. All right, then it looks like we have a couple of 49s. Thank you, C. Maddie 99. All right, so now get your journals out, because what we're going to have to do to decipher this is sometimes you're going to have to write the word out. And then for each sentence, I want you to be able to go ahead and type in what you think that sentence or line is. Sometimes they won't be complete sentences. But before we go into this, why do you think she's writing in a diary? Can anyone type in why you think she's writing in a diary? And just feel free to type it in, and then I'll share some of it out. Clive, we don't know, right? Let's see, does anyone else have any guesses? Let's see, all the way back in 1863 to look back on, Madison said, that's a good one. Lindsay said, so other people will know about her life. Well, that definitely helps us know about her life, right? Sienna says they didn't have tech, I'm assuming technology. So she's not writing on what we think of as a modern day diary. Does anyone know what kind of thing on the internet might be called similar to a diary today? And then Jasper said, because the people could see that are in her family. That's true. Google Docs. Yeah, and I'm thinking too of a blog, right? Some people actually write recipes on a journal and everything, and this is almost the same thing for her. But we see that there's many reasons for people to write in diaries, and that's to share things, to leave things behind. But sometimes, don't you just need to write? Maybe like you need to draw. You know, sometimes you just need to get something out there. And she was going through a lot of changes, because 1863 Denver, do you think it's anything like it is now? No, not at all, right? So a lot of this is actually about her writing about her being here in Denver for the first time. So I see a lot of similar things to, maybe this is kind of like her therapeutic social media. There's so many reasons people would write things down, and you could think of any reason that you want to write things down. All right, so now we're going to do this line by line. So we got this line right here. Now, if you look at it very closely, this is the first line. It's not going to be the first, it's not going to be very big for a lot of you, but we're going to do this together. Now, can anyone tell me what the first three words might be? And I'm going to switch it over to my whiteboard here pretty soon. So go ahead. Let's see, Audrey had typed in I do and know. That's very close. Now, go and know. So we're seeing a couple different things right here, right? Because we have to imagine sometimes people write cursive very differently. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to share my whiteboard. All right, so you should see my blank screen right here. But then we're going to write this out together. Now, It's very helpful for me when I'm transcribing or deciphering this code to show you, to write it out sometimes. So we have kind of what looks like, thank you, Jesse, for spotlighting that. So we have something that looks like this, right? Here, let me actually go back a couple here. All right, so these first three words. Now I'm going to look in the chat. Obviously, when I see it really big here, it kind of says, I do not, but I definitely understand why I see the go part, right? Because she writes her I kind of like a big little G, right? And then do not. So we have that first part right over here. And let's go back to, okay, so the first part is I do not. But I'm going to share the screen and I'll make sure I spotlight my next screen here. All right, so we're back to this, and you should see this again. So we have I do not, and then one of you already said it. What's this word right here? I think Audrey kind of said it, a couple of you at the beginning. It's no, K-N-O. So I do not know. But then let's look at the rest. Let's see, any guesses what this might be? But, exactly. So I do not know, but, anyone have this word? Remember, she's writing it pretty fast. I do not know, but that. Now we have another one that looks like a weird word. Now let's look at the rest of this. We have it, I do not know that. I do not know, but that. I do wrong to waste so much. That's exactly right. So let's look at the change here. So that's what she wrote. I do not know, but that I do wrong to waste so much. Is this a complete sentence? It is not, right? We're actually doing it line by line. So she might actually be continuing to write. So let's see what the next line is. So we have, I do not know, but that I do to waste so much. So here is the next part. Ooh, so waste so much. What's a word that might come right after that? Time, right? Audrey, correct. So we have, I do not wait, but waste so much time. Let's look at the rest of this here. Looking like we're getting some words in there. Feel free to keep transcribing in there, folks. Now, what I'm going to do is share my screen and we're going to write it word for word so everyone can see it all in one. All right. So we already have, I do not know, but that I do wrong to waste so much. And we know time is the next word. All right, so let's look at this here. So we have, I'm doing my best to write it like she does so we can really see it like she does. All right. Now, let me take a look at the chat, folks. By late nights. So she doesn't waste so much time by late rising. Now, when we think of late rising, what might that mean? If you're rising late, do you think you might be sleeping in? Yeah, you're waking up late. Good job, Adeline, Amelia, and Gertrude. All right, but then there's another part of this. Let's go ahead and redo this here. Let's see. So late rising. Now, All right. Now, does anyone know what this might say? Right. When I woke. Right. Perfect. All right. So now I'm going to switch it back to the screen here. So you can see this definitely takes some time, right? So we can see, I'm going to switch it to the next slide here. So there's what this says. Time by late rising, it was 8 o'clock when we, I wonder what they did at 8 o'clock. So we know that they're rising late. Now, I don't know about you, but is 8 o'clock sound like a late rising to you? No, no, I agree, Audrey. That sounds pretty early to me, but we're thinking that she probably did get pretty up pretty early when she was with her son here. So let's look at this right here. Now, let's do it word by word. I think I'm going to go ahead. We don't need me to write it out. And if we do have a word that's hard, we'll go ahead and do it together. But now, if you have any ideas of this here, go ahead and type them in. But we're going to do it one by one. So when we left over, that says leftover, right? Can anyone read that? Now, what is this word right here? Anyone see that word? Oh, someone got it. Beds. Lindsay got that one right there. I'm seeing other guesses like leaks, beak, feels. So we know that there's a lot of different ways that we could read this. So it might be important that you do have this. Let me actually put it back on this. All right, so I should have this spotlighted. That says beds, right? Now, what about this word? Let's see, and, right, I'm seeing, you can see that kind of A here, but then a very quick N, and there's the D, right? Leftover beds, and let's look at all three of these words now. There's three different words here. Let's see, by, looks like Hope got by. What about this word right here? By the, let's see, got one time. Good job, Hope. So by the time, now, this is one word right here. This one, originally, I had a hard time transcribing and deciphering, but does anyone know what this word starting right here where I'm circling? Breakfast, exactly. So breakfast was eaten. So, I mean, maybe that's why things were so late, because breakfast was already eaten, right? So here's what this whole sentence or this line says. Left our beds, and by the time breakfast was eaten, and all right, so what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to read it all, not just the three lines that we looked at, and we're going to get a good idea of what at least those three lines would have been, all right? Okay, so let me get back to the screen here. All right, so I do not know, but that I do wrong to waste so much time by late rising. It was 8 o'clock when we left our beds, and by the time breakfast was eaten, and all right, so we kind of know that Margaret Gray Evans in 1863 woke up late, that was 8 o'clock, and by the time that she had left her beds, breakfast was already eaten, right? So do you think that they're probably eating breakfast pretty early? I would say so. Now, doesn't this take some time to transcribe this stuff? We still have so many more lines to actually do, right? So here's our next line. Now, we're going to look at it all together. Go ahead and do it word by word if you want, but if you know it all, go ahead and type it in. Now, we have this phrase right here. Let's see here. So I have this first word right here. Remember, there's that lowercase letter that I used to have trouble with. Now, what is this? That's an R, right, Audrey? So what is this word right here? Ooh, I see moths. It's not moss, sadly, but now I do want some mozzarella sticks. I see room. Yeah, so good job, Hope. We started with an R, and that's an R, O, O, and a very squiggly M at the end. Now, remember, they were fixing their beds or anything like that. So room in, what's the last word right here? Let's see. Order, right. See, I think it's this lowercase r that people write very differently here and there. So good job, everyone. Room and order. Now, just for the sake of time, I'm going to switch it over to the next slide so we can see what this whole sentence was. Room and order, it was 10. So by the time that they had gotten the room in order, it was 10 o'clock. And then she writes a little dash here, and it said, heard Willie read and spell. Now, we're thinking of this. We know who's writing this, right? It's Margaret Gray Evans. Now, who could Willie be? We're going to learn this as we go on, but does anyone have a guess on who Willie might be to her? Good job. I see Lindsay, Adeline. I see brother on there as well. I'm seeing lots of guesses, but a lot of you that had said son, it could be anything, right? Son is correct. Now, a lot of them were learning at home, and guess what Willie was doing? He was learning to read and spell at home, like many of us are doing today, right? All right, so let's go ahead and get to the next one here. Now, this one's a little harder, right? Now, what could these two words be right here? So we have and. Good job, Addison. Let's see, and comes. Let's see. And concert, I see. Now, remember, her son Willie is learning. So there's lots of things you can learn about here. I have, ooh, we got one correct, and count. Count a couple of you. So we have and count. What's the next two words here? What are these? By turns, by twos. Good job. That was a very good group effort. So we have and count by twos. Now this is an interesting next one because he's learning to count by twos. Multiples of twos is very important. So we know that Willie was the same age that a lot of you might be here in the group. He was around 10 years old when he was learning with his mom in his house. But then there's the rest of this here. So and count by twos, but then what is this phrase right here? We might know that this is a lowercase a, but then we got these two words. Now this one, when I was transcribing, was a little harder too, because we don't usually write about learning in this way. Let's say we have an A. Let's look at this one here. Now remember, it's a squiggly line here. That might be an M. If that's an M, what could this be? So we have M. I think this is an E, N, T, mental, right? So it's your brain work. So this is and count by twos, a mental, what could this word be then? Operation. Good job, Addison. So and count by twos, a mental operation. So she's definitely talking about math here. And then these words right here, can anyone guess them? I'll tell them what they are here in a second. But we have this word that she wrote kind of close together. That is actually, I see the word hug, which is good. Clive, you read it right. He, but you got goes right here. So he goes through. So, and count by twos, a mental operation, he goes through. So he's doing some learning at home. So there's what it says here. This is our text kind of cursive here, but and count by twos, a mental operation he goes through. So she's also at home teaching her son. Now we almost have all these lines here, and then we'll read it all together just to make sure we know here. So, I got some here with by, that's good. So with by, let's see, we're on this word right here, which, good job Addison. With by which, let's see, now we start kind of this new sentence. Remember, This to me kind of looks like a lowercase g, but you're all getting used to her handwriting. This is her uppercase I. So I hope he may, let's see, so with by which I hope he may, yeah, that is your name, Hope. Awesome. Now what is this word right here? If we look at it very closely, I believe that's an A right there. And then we have a C and a Q. Now, does anyone know what word might start with an A and then have C and Q right next to it? Because that might help us. Yeah, we got it. Josie got it in there. Jasper got it in there. But it's actually acquire. So I hope he may acquire. Now, what is this word right here? Rapidity. That's not a word we use a lot either, right? Rapidity of, and let's just figure out this word right here. And then I will reveal. Let's see, what is this first letter? Rapidity of, Now, if we're thinking of math, we might hear this word in math a lot. I think this is starting with an F. Figures. Good job, Audrey. All right. So let's see what this actually says here. With by which I hope he may acquire rapidity of figures. Now, I think she's talking about him learning math, right? Because we hear the word figures a lot in math. And she's learning, she's doing it by twos. All right, so we just got a couple more lines to go here, but let's quickly see if we can do these couple of lines. Now, let's see. This looks like it might be a figure or maybe a time. Let's see, I have at, and what's this word right here? 11, right, good job. So feel free to keep typing it there, and I'm gonna go ahead and reveal what this whole thing says. At 11, went out with Mrs. Burton to collect or rather with, Now we have this big word here and then a couple of names in this one. We have, let's see, one of your chicken's names is 11. That's a good name for a chicken. Now this first word here is subscription for Mr. Willard's salary. And then we have another time here. By 2 o'clock, we had collected. So there's that one right there.
Mike, I wanted just to be mindful of everybody's time and that we're going to need to wrap up here in just a couple of minutes. So if you can find a good stopping point in that sentence, that would be super awesome.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, you did a great job transcribing today. So you can see that, cursive is important for realizing what was going on in history. So $103. Afterwards, Willie and I spent, let's see, and here's the last line right here. Now spent, if you look here, it says most of the afternoon with Mrs. Willard and read a little from Mrs. Browning's verses, spent the evening with Mrs. And that's where this post stops, right over here. So she was writing about how she woke up late for breakfast and how she had to make her beds, the breakfast started, and then talking about teaching her son Willie, right? So we can learn a lot about what she would have done, but just to cap it off here for the end, first off, let me read the whole thing and then we'll put it back over to Josie so we can let you know what's up next week. So I'm gonna read out the whole thing for you. All right, so the whole thing we figured out today was, I do not know, but that I do wrong to waste so much time by late rising. It was 8 o'clock when we left our beds, and by the time breakfast was eaten and room in order, it was 10 o'clock. Heard Willie read and spell and count by twos, a mental operation he goes through, with by which I hope he may acquire rapidity of figures. At 11, we went out with Mrs. Burton to collect or rather with, subscription for Mrs. Willard's a salary. By 2 o'clock, we had collected $103. Afterward, Willie and I spent most of the afternoon with Mrs. Willard and read a little from Mrs. Browning's verses, spent with an evening with Mrs. All right, so good job, everyone. So this one is upside down, but I wanted to show you she was teaching Willie and possibly writing in this diary at the same time. Who do you think drew this? Well, what's really awesome to figure out is that her son had actually written this and drew that there. So we can see that even as a 10-year-old, he's drawing all over his mom's diary or journal. All right, well, thank you all very much for joining me today in this Cracking the Cursive Code. I hope that a lot of you had fun cracking this code with me because it's a lot of the work that I do here. But thank you, Josie. Thank you, everyone, and back to you.
Thanks so much, Mike. Good work, friends. This kind of work is something that History Colorado is doing right now, and they're looking for volunteers to help out with this stuff, to actually transcribe letters and writings of people from, hundreds of years ago, which is pretty amazing.